I want to take a moment to bring up a few concepts that have been on my mind lately. Most of these are arising because of interactions that I've had with my students lately. As I meet more artists, take more students, talk with people more and more, I see a lot of recurring threads, a lot of things coming up over and over again, specifically in the category of where people's artistic suffering is coming from. So there's a couple I want to talk about, but I want to start with the pain of not being supported or misunderstood or having pressures from family to do something else or to hedge your bets on drawing and art with something else. This is actually not a problem that is exclusive to people who are early on in the artistic journey. This problem continues. It might never stop, actually. As you get older, you just have these pressures coming from different people instead of them coming from your parents. For example, when you're young, these pressures can come from partners later on in life. The variety is endless when it comes to people who are going to put pressure on you to not be an artist. I want to make the initial disclaimer that I believe the only proper ultimate position on those things is to say, screw them, right? Someone like your parents might have a good point, right? They may be worried for you because it's hard to make money off of art, right? And in the long run, they may quote unquote be right. They may be correct that you are going to dump a lot of time into this and fail to make money with it. But still, with a lot of love, with a lot of compassion, and with a lot of respect, screw them, and their opinion doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Art is unfortunately unlike other things. If you are measuring it off of whether it is sensible or rational or logical, or if it's going to make you any money, I can almost guarantee you it's not going to do any of those things. It is going to fail to be rational at every turn. It is going to elude your grasp. It's going to refuse to explain itself or the way that it works. And if you want to make any money off of it, you're going to basically need to be a shrewd business genius. You're going to have to insert yourself into a lot of places that you would not expect when you begin the art journey. It's not going to do any of that stuff, and to base your evaluations or your reasons for engaging in an artistic process off of thoughts or concerns like that off the bat is patently crazy as far as I'm concerned. It's not crazy because it doesn't make sense. It's crazy because it's just completely getting off on the wrong foot. It's looking at art the wrong way. It makes sense to evaluate art that way within the context of our current culture of the world. But art has nothing to do with the world, with current culture. That's a game that art can play. That's a mask that art can put on. Art can, within its broad scope, decide to, for a time, engage with politics and with themes that are relevant to the zeitgeist of the current human experience. But all of that must always, by definition, be a smaller, temporary, transient aspect of something much more ancient, deep, and unknowable that is the generative creative urge. When you engage in art, when you want to make art, you deceive yourself if you tell yourself that you want to do it solely to do those things, right? It is self-deception to tell yourself that you want to make art to gain status or to make money or to have a cloudy job in designing video games or something like that, or to get the attention of people who like this particular fan base or something like that, or to be perceived the way that people perceive great artists or anything like that. Like I said, you can lie to yourself that that's why you want to do it. The tiny, insignificant part of you that is your individuated personality can convince itself, hypnotize itself into believing that that is why it wants to do it. But that's just a game. That's just a interesting, convenient way to keep yourself interested and to have some way to grapple with something that is essentially slippery and ephemeral. The truth is that anyone who wants to make art wants to make it for reasons that are probably unexplainable. And certainly why they make it the way that they do is unexplainable. There's no accounting for your own preferences, your taste. There's no accounting for why you like one thing over another. All of these things are beyond personal. They're transpersonal. They arise from nowhere. This must, of course, be the case because no one can account for why they are an artist instead of not being an artist. Certainly, this can't be accounted for because everything in society incentivizes you not to be an artist. It makes you very difficult for other people to understand. It's an utterly niche pursuit that only other artists can help you with. As we discussed, it ostracizes you from people like your family or your spouse or something like that. And it very rarely ever pays anything but experiential returns, right? It's very hard to make any money off of it. We do it because for some reason, each individual artist is intensely gratified by releasing this borderline cosmic internal pressure to create something from nothing. And to not do this produces something akin to a completely luxury couture existential dread that is unheard of in other realms. Why you were given either this blessing or this curse, depending on your mood of the day, you can't account for it. You have no idea. Right? You're just one of the people who is destined to grapple with this particular issue. We forget this at our peril. It's so obvious that it struggles to maintain our interest and our attention for a very long time. And so we add all of these layers. We add jobs, careers, prestige, wanting to impress ourselves or others. These things invite another dose of powerful interest into the pursuit of art. But they float on top of the obvious truth, which is that no one has any idea why they do this or what they're doing. It just feels incredible to do. If we can reset a little bit more often and linger and meditate on that foundation, on the core of why we wind up doing this, it can be very freeing. It can be very relaxing. It can remind us not to take all of these other layers that we add on for fun too seriously. And it's also a reminder of, like I said before, you can politely tell people like your parents to get out of your goddamn way. It has nothing to do with them or their opinion. And the same goes for the opinions of your friends, your rivals, your lovers. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. How could it? How could it? There's a layer, of course, like I said, where the practical needs be considered, right? The layer of you that decides to make art a career, the layer of you that decides to make art a source of income, that layer of you must take very seriously the concerns and the advice of parents, spouses, brothers, sisters, dogs, internet personalities. That part of you is doomed to need to grapple with those things, and to not pay attention to them makes you basically a sociopath. But the part of you underneath that, the part of you that is the maker, is the creative, their opinion couldn't possibly matter. It has nothing to do with them, and it never will. For this reason, there's never really a good reason to quit art, right? Even if your parents turn out to be right and you have to bail on your art pursuits to work a non-creative job, that means nothing. It simply means nothing. You just then make art at night. And that nighttime pursuit, daytime pursuit, middle of the day pursuit, wherever it winds up, is utterly untouched, unblemished, and untarnished by the nature of your life around it. It still runs just fine. It can run just fine. And like I said, other people's opinions within that space are less than the wind, less than clouds. They're less than thoughts. Even your own thoughts are in dubious standing in that realm. So the thoughts of others, my God, what could it mean? I hope that you, as an artist, find time to pause and reflect on occasion. I hope that instead of reacting to every little comment, every little word, every little thing that anybody says to you or about you or your practice, I hope that you don't just spasm compulsively in reaction to them, at least not all the time. I hope that you take long, careful moments to consider what those things really mean, to consider their actual scale compared to the endeavor that you are engaged in. I hope that you take moments to evaluate if the opinions and happenstance of the world are really a thing of the same order as the practice of making art. I personally don't think they are. I think that the generative impulse, the desire to create, the feelings that come up when drawing are of a completely different magnitude and substance compared to worldly pursuits like money and career and clout. It's just very hard to remember that. Again, I think all of this is laughably obvious when we enter a conversation about it. It's just that we are mentally troubled. We're almost crazy in that as soon as we sit down to draw, we tend to forget. We tend to inhabit a space that we don't even believe in instead. And we instead operate from those erroneous assumptions that it somehow matters whether our drawings go well or poorly, whether they will be liked by others, whether they will have a place in the world, whether they hit some sort of mark, whether they belong in the portfolio, whether other people will like them, whether someone will want to hire over them. Again, those concerns make perfect sense, but only if the foundation is right. Only if there is the strong, certain understanding that those things are not what the practice is, that those things are not even a single percentage point of the emotional charge of what is being engaged in here. When that is felt with certainty, when that is accepted, when that is the truth from which one operates, that is the only healthy, sustainable way to then, with wisdom, outsource one's most utterly personal heart for money and gain and clout. Those words are generally charged within our circles with a sort of negativity, but as someone who has made all of their income in life off of art, I hope that you will believe me when I say that I don't see it as inherently negative, right? My entire livelihood and the livelihood of my family is based on that. So I don't think it's inherently negative, but I want to be very clear here that it's guaranteed to be negative if the river that is producing those waves is not coursing in the right direction. It will always crumble if the foundation is not solid. If you don't know that art will always remain no matter what goes wrong, that creativity will always remain no matter what goes wrong, and that creativity is just so overwhelmingly powerful and light and transparent and inexhaustible that it can casually, easily manifest something as deep and nuanced as an art career. It is untroubled by this. It is so unharmable that even the vicissitudes of an entire art career couldn't phase it. And if you feel like it has been phased by that, if you feel like the pains, the adventitious shames and glories of an art career have harmed your creativity, that's a lie that you tell yourself. That is your own personal narrative. That is the conditioning factors of your overblown and self-aggrandized personality. It's you taking too seriously the personal narrative. And the cognitive dissonance there, right? We all instinctively want to take unbelievably seriously our personal narrative, right? It's the only thing we can grapple onto, right? Because our unknowable human nature can't be grasped and can't be lived from, and we can't live the narratives of others, right? So we are doomed to exaggerate the importance and the nature of our own personal narrative, but something deep down inside of us knows that our generative impulse has nothing to do with that. And it creates horrible cognitive dissonance. That creates existential dread when the art practice becomes constipated. That's how I think about it. You're just trying to force out something that needs to come out naturally on its own. So the core must be right. You've got to remember that the fact that you have the generative impulse at all, the creative urge at all, the desire to make art at all, means on some very deep level that the goal has already been achieved. You already pulled it off. In some sense that no one wants to admit and that no one feels comfortable building a world structure around, you already pulled it off. You're already done. You're just going to have to go on a journey to bring yourself to believe that. You're going to have to embroider it with many lovely drawings such that your petty little personality will believe what is already obviously true, which is that you are a creative of the first order. So go on. Do whatever amount of embroidery you need to. Create as many lovely drawings as it will take for you to rest well at night. The world will appreciate the beautiful things that you make, but try not to trick yourself into thinking that you need to do that in order to feel utterly secure and good about your desire to do so. Notice that none of this requires input or validation from anybody else. And that input and validation is likely only to confuse things. There's a part of us that naturally requires it, right? We need people to, we're just so very small and delicate and precious and preening that no matter what we've achieved or what we've proven to ourselves, there's a little bit of us that always needs to hear from others, oh my, you do very well, don't you? You know, we need that. That's seems to be a natural part of our human nature. But it's a necessary, it seems to be a necessary evil that will always blow us off course. So take just as much of it as you need, right? Just as much as is necessary to get the minimum, and then don't worry about the rest. Drop the rest. I think I'll leave it there for now. Thank you for drawing today.